All right, so after this interactive panel discussion, I'm going to present a project that I'm personally very passionate about, but at the same time it's a little bit strange to stand here, because we are a truly decentralized project. So I'm standing here right now as a community member, but basically any one of you could be standing here. It's not really about the people, but it's more about the project. So that's one remark I wanted to make in advance. Hello, hello. All right. Yeah.
Does it work or not? No?
I think it's...
Right?
So yeah, and while we are fixing the technology, maybe it's also a fun thing that while the talk is going on, feel free to tweet at the DECRED project. And if your tweet gets retweeted by the official project account, I'm going to give out some bounties. So you can send me your DECRED address, and I'll be sending you, let's say, $10 worth of DECRED to your address, just by sending a simple tweet. So I challenge you all, just make some good pictures, tweet at DECRED project, and yeah, make some money tonight. All right. So yeah, before, maybe it's good to give a little bit of background about myself. So my name is Noah, and I've been a DECRED project member for a long time, actually since the beginning of the project. And my role at DECRED is a community coordinator. So I'm not a technical guy, but I know a little bit about code. But I mainly interact with the community and moderate social media. And for example, the onboarding of new developers, that's also one of my responsibilities at the moment. And yeah, in daily life, I'm a software tester, so I do know a little bit about the code. And yeah, as I said in the panel discussion, the main reason for me to get involved with blockchains in general and DECRED in particular is freedom and autonomy. So really the freedom to do whatever you think is right to do, to send your money to whoever you think is right, for example, to WikiLeaks, and the autonomy to do so without being hindered by any third party or any authority. So that was really for me the core, and that's why I think that Bitcoin was great, because they started this whole revolution. And I'm going to be presenting the DECRED project as it tackles some of the challenges that Bitcoin is facing. And as we are still fixing the the tech. Yeah, I have my laptop here as well. What?
You have HDMI?
I have one.
Have you? Okay.
Yeah, it's... Can you hold this for a second? Because I need to log in.
I don't know why it doesn't work. Like also, there's start first with my laptop. I'm using LibreOffice, so. So this one, what do you think?
Yeah, just let me log in and
Yeah, get some water.
might need my charger. Yeah, great, thanks. So So we've been losing some time. I'm going to be skipping a few slides in the process. No? I also want to say that if you have any questions, please put them on slido.com and join the room 5816. So you can ask me questions there, and after the talk I will be happy to answer any of your questions. So before we begin, I want to do a short interaction with the room. So how many people agree with this statement? Bitcoin was created to address the flaws of our existing monetary system. Can I see some hands? I see some people who are not sure. I see some people who are not at all raising their hand. All right, that's interesting. What we believe is for sure is that Bitcoin is a unique innovation, and an innovation that should be examined and, where possible, improved. And the main innovation that Bitcoin brought to the world was a blockchain. And as we heard from Bas, this has been a longer process. So Bitcoin is using technologies from other projects, and the unique features of a blockchain are gamified timestamping. So miners use their hashing power to solve puzzles, cryptographic puzzles, to timestamp transactions. And by doing so, they get X amount of coins as a reward. And that creates an automated issuance. And furthermore, a blockchain is censorship resistant, so there's no third party who can censor your transactions. So why would you change a project? Why would you alter Bitcoin? Because obviously the vision of Satoshi Nakamoto was the best and should always be developed and honored. Why would you change? Why not build upon Bitcoin and have one blockchain forever and ever? And there are a few reasons to start a new project, and I'll be going into detail on each of them. So first of all, within a project there can be a conflict of interests. And with Bitcoin there is one main conflict, and that is between the users, the stakeholders, and the miners. Because we, the people, we want to transact as fast and as cheap as possible. But the miners, they want to run their software at the lowest operational costs, and they want the highest possible transaction fees, because the transaction fees are actually paid to the miners. And as they want to maximize their profit, they are going to want the highest transaction fees possible. And this creates a conflict. And right now within Bitcoin, the miners have almost a total power. So they decide which software they run. They decide what happens on the network. And secondly, there is different development groups within Bitcoin who can have conflicting ideas. As you may know, the Bitcoin core protocol was developed in C++, and there are alternative programming languages that you can write the Bitcoin code in. So for example, there was a group of people who used Go, the Golang, as a programming language to implement the Bitcoin software. And for a long time they were blackmailed and censored and tried to make fun of. And the Bitcoin core developers actually told companies and people not to run the alternative implementation of the Bitcoin software, and to protect their position, to protect their power. And this is a very unhealthy sign of an ecosystem. So that would be a reason to start a new project as well. And the biggest and most famous reason to start a new project is because Bitcoin doesn't have an on-chain decision-making process. So whenever people don't agree about how to solve a problem, they will create a fork. And while some people see it as a good thing, because they see it as free money, because if you own some Bitcoin here, then after the chain splits, you own Bitcoin on 2 chains. But actually what happens is that the people with different ideas, they go to a different chain, and that drains all the diversity of ideas from the main chain, and you get a lot of different centralized projects. So ideally you want a contest of ideas and not really a contest of chains. You want to keep all the ideas within the project so you can filter out the best ones and implement those. So while Bitcoin may or may not have been created to address the flaws of our existing monetary system, DECRED was created to address the flaws of Bitcoin. All right, that's a big promise, so let's look at how we actually try to solve it. Because I know we all love history, we just had a long talk about the history of Bitcoin. Let's go into a little bit of detail about the history of DECRED. So there were 2 white papers who have been influential for the origin of DECRED. And that were the white papers of Memcoin 2 and the white paper of Proof of Activity. The DECRED project was launched early 2016 without any ICO or external venture capital. So in order to start up, we had an airdrop of 4% of the total tokens to everyone who signed up, everyone who applied for the free coins. And we had a small percentage reserved to fund the early development. So because we took no external capital, no institutional investors, no venture capital, we are completely independent and autonomous. So in order to address some of the flaws of Bitcoin, we developed a hybrid proof-of-work, proof-of-stake blockchain. And we all know what a proof-of-work blockchain does. But the proof-of-stake factor is twofold in DECRED. So first of all, the stakeholders, so basically the people who own the coins, they verify the proof-of-work miners. And secondly, they vote on proposed changes to the consensus rules. So the hybrid proof-of-work, proof-of-stake system gives the voters, the stakeholders, the ability to verify and correct the proof-of-work miners. And that creates a better balance between the holders and and the miners. And one example that happens within Bitcoin, that happened a lot within Bitcoin, was the miners trying to mine empty blocks. And those are blocks that don't contain any transactions, which is very cheap for the miners, but not good for the stakeholders, because then it will take longer for your transaction to broadcast to the network. And so with DECRED, because on every block there are voters who verify if the block behaved, or if the miners mined the block correctly, we can eliminate those kind of practices. And with the proof-of-stake system, DECRED can more readily react and adapt to a changing context. Because when the context changes, so for example, let's say hashing algorithm becomes vulnerable for attack, then you need to be able to act fast, to change to a new algorithm. And with Bitcoin, because the miners have all the power, they run the software, so it's very hard to change, to innovate. So with DECRED, because the stakeholders actually have the final vote, we can force the miners to upgrade and to implement the new software. So we are not hostage of the miners who may or may not upgrade. No, we can actually, as the stakeholders, together as the people who hold the currency, tell the miners, hey, we need to upgrade, let's do it. And that is a big advantage. So as you know, with Bitcoin, the reward that is given out to the miners, it is 100% for the proof-of-work miners. And with DECRED, we try to balance that a bit more. So 60% is still going to the proof-of-work miners. Then we have 30% to the stakeholders, so the people who vote on the validity of blocks and who vote on the innovation of the blockchain. And we have a 10% block reward going to the development entity that funds development groups, independent contractors to develop the DECRED ecosystem. So we've heard the word blockchain governance a lot, but what does it actually mean? So basically with blockchain governance, we mean that as a project, you can evolve and adapt. And with blockchain governance, you want to do this in a decentralized way. So even though there is no central authority, we as a community of people who participate in a project need to be able to decide on its future direction. So eventually, because we are talking about technical projects, we are talking about code. And before we start to work on a potentially controversial issue, we will request the input of our users, of our stakeholders, by developing a proposal. And we actually developed an open source proposal system. So any project can use the Politeia code, and it functions as a proposal system where you can send your proposal, and the community, the stakeholders, can vote or downvote your proposal. And there's also the possibility to comment on the proposal. So you have peer-reviewed proposals. And because each proposal that is submitted is hashed on the blockchain, there is censorship-resistant. And that is a great feature, because if you have competing development groups, you need to be able to prove that your proposal was censored in order to avoid that infighting of the different development groups. So yeah, this code is fully open source, and any project can use the code to implement a proposal system in their company, in their university, in their group of people. So a few remarks about voting. Voting is optional. And if you want to vote, you need to lock some of your DECRED in the network. And you do that by acquiring voting tickets. The price of a ticket depends on the target size of the total ticket pool. So it's basically it's supply and demand. If more people want to vote, the voting price is higher. If less people want to vote, the voting price is going to be lower. And every vote that is mined on the blockchain, so every vote is rewarded with coins. And basically each voting ticket is waiting in a lottery. Every block contains 5 votes, so therefore the maximum waiting time is about 142 days. And if there are people who are really good at math, they would figure out that the average voting time is around 1 month. And right now the ticket price is around 80 DECRED, and the block reward for each vote is around 1.3 DECRED, which gives you an average return on investment of 1.5% per vote. So I'm going to let you do the math if that is profitable or not. So the way our blockchain governance system works is outlined by this diagram. And because I know it's a lot, I'm going to skip this diagram and go straight to the summary. So basically what happens, before voting, we already code the changes to be made. So that is fundamentally different to how many projects approach blockchain governance. Before we ever start the vote, we already develop the code that needs to be implemented. So that new code is implemented and distributed, and then we have an update phase. So we need 95% of the miners to update, and 75% of the voters. Then we have a voting cycle that lasts about a month, and after that month we tally all the votes, we calculate and evaluate the results. There are cases of a re-vote. So for example, we need at least 10% of the people to say yes or no. If we don't reach that threshold, we need a re-vote. And if we reach the threshold, we need at least 75% to vote yes or 75% to vote no, as illustrated here. So we have a threshold, we have a majority, and if the majority is not met, we also have a re-vote. The vote can pass or the vote can fail. And it's also possible for a vote to expire, because you can have a very long voting process that takes a year. For example, we've seen with Bitcoin and SegWit that it took almost 2 or 3 years to finally decide what we were going to do. So we have an expiry date, so after 1 year the proposal expires and we have to code in something new. All right, that was a little bit technical, and I hope everyone is still awake. I quickly want to go into the summary of my talk. So if you didn't pay any attention for all these minutes that I've been talking, here's what I want you to take away. So why DECRED? DECRED is a decentralized autonomous currency that improves upon Bitcoin, Litecoin, Monero. So it's a payment system. How do we do it? We implemented a specific form of blockchain governance with on-chain voting mechanism and self-funded development. So what do we actually have? We have a functioning, so a working blockchain since 2016 that implemented the hybrid proof-of-work, proof-of-stake model, and where 10% of the block reward goes to a development entity. So those are the core things that I hope you are taking away of the talk. So then I want to spend 5 minutes on outlining the future of DECRED, and then I'm going to go to the questions. And if you see some good questions, please upvote them. So the questions with the highest amount of votes, they get the highest priority. So while we have in these 2 years achieved a lot, We have a lot of ICOs who promised they would deliver something, but DECRED actually delivered right from the start. And work that we are going to do in the future include making the proposal system better, implementing the Lightning Network, moving towards a fully decentralized autonomous entity. So right now our development fund is governed by a foundation, and we want that to be fully in control of the users and of the community. The next big thing on our agenda is user privacy, so sending transactions anonymously. And last but not least, atomic swaps. And let me see some quick hands again. Who has heard of the concept atomic swaps? So of those people, how many of you know that it was actually the DECRED developers who developed the code that Bitcoin and Litecoin are now using to do atomic swaps? Well, 2 people. What? So basically what happened, the DECRED developers, together with Charlie Lee of Litecoin, wrote the code base, and it was happily implemented by many other projects. But yeah, it is still very, very in its infancy, so you need to use the command line to perform an atomic swap. And for the people who don't know what is an atomic swap is going from DECRED to Bitcoin directly on-chain. So you don't need any exchange service as a middleman. You can exchange Bitcoin to DECRED directly, transacting on-chain without having to trust one another. So it really is the next revolution in blockchain. And what we want to do, we want to improve the atomic swap capabilities, so to integrate it into the graphical user interface wallet. Because yeah, I know how to use the command line, but I bet many of you don't. And it would be great to have it implemented into the easy-to-use wallets that we already have, and maybe even mobile wallets. So yeah, that really outlines the future plans that we have. If you have any questions, you can always go to decred.org/community and join one of the social media platforms. And then it's time to answer some questions.
Yeah, we are very short on time, so we'll reply to 3 of those questions.
Sure.
So the 3 most popular ones. How can you force miners to upgrade?
Yeah. So what happened is the proof of work miners, they produce a block, and each block, 5 voters are going to verify if that block is using the right consensus rules. And as you may know, every block has a block header. And with each upgrade of the code, the block header changes. So what we can do as well, with every new block, we can check if the block contains the newest block header. If it doesn't, we downvote it. And what happens next is that the miner doesn't get any reward for that block. So he basically loses his money. He's spending a lot of electricity and work, hashing power to mine those blocks. But if they get downvoted, they don't get any reward. So by downvoting the blocks that don't have the newest block header, you can effectively force miners to upgrade, because otherwise they don't get paid. It's about aligning incentives.
Okay, thanks. Very interesting one. The reserve plus the 10% tax on block rewards, how is it spent? And how will the community know when it's spent?
Yeah, so that will be done by the proposal system. So the proposal system will be a platform where anyone can request funds, and the stakeholders are going to vote if the proposal gets funded or not.
Last one, how is DECRED resistant against Sybil attacks, stock puppeting, in voting and POS?
Yeah, so resistance against Sybil attacks is a big question in proof-of-stake coins. So in one way, by having a hybrid proof-of-work and proof-of-stake blockchain, you already have added security. But with the proof-of-stake blockchain, basically what you need to do is you need to lock up a certain amount of your coins. So at the moment it is about 80 DECRED to lock into the system to be able to vote. And after your vote is on the blockchain, you get those coins back. But in order to vote, you need to lock your DECRED in the system. And in order to have a Sybil attack on the proof of stake system, the voting system, you need to control at least 60% of the votes, which means you need to control 60% of the coins that are currently used to stake, which means you need to be very, very rich. And if you are very, very invested into the project, if you have 60% of the coins, you want the project to succeed. So you're going to do what is in your best interest and vote on those. You're going to vote in a way that will sustain your money, your stake. So the stakeholders are incentivized to vote in their best interest, which is making the DECRED ecosystem bigger and better. So there is no way to prevent against Sybil attacks, but when there is a user that has so many coins that he has a majority of the votes, that means that user is effectively the one who will be losing the most by attacking the network. Is that clear? All right. If you have any other questions, you can always come to me after the talk.
Yeah, as last one about voting, like how does it work? You log in somewhere and you see topics that are being voted on, and how do these topics enter the system? Does some master, whatever admin, code them in, or how does that work a little bit?
Yeah.
Be quick.
Yeah. Okay. So really quick, we have a gorgeous wallet that you can download, decred.org/downloads, and every vote that is currently active will appear in the wallet, and you can set your voting preferences based on the topic that is going on. And what we also did is we have an automatic API that connects to those wallets, so it's it gets updated automatically. All right, I think that's it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.